Hey sweeties, how are you doing? Welcome to Naya Sim or Cimnanya. If this is your first time of coming across this channel, sweetheart, smash that subscribe button and turn your notification so you are notified each time I upload. And please give this video a thumb up. I appreciate you all so much, and I'm saying massive shout out to every one of you for the support you all showering me here with. I am grateful, and you all are super sweet. So today we'll be talking something very important, and it's about something that I came across, and I was like, slavery is still very much alive, but it's just happening in different ways. And it is crazy how the Europeans knew that some Africans are very naive, and then they choose to take advantage of them. And it's about an European modeling company who actually go out to the refugees in Africa, South Sudan, and the rest of it, and then pick models, make them sign contracts they know nothing about. Some of them don't even speak English, but they make them sign lengthy contracts, and then, do with them with what they like. And some people are saying modeling agencies are modern trafficking companies. And all I saw here proves it right. And I am asking, who are the people in charge of the refugee that the kids left to Europe? Let's get into this video.
This story is so disturbing, and I can't believe more people don't know about it. The Sunday Times did an investigative piece on how European modeling agencies go to refugee camps in East Africa to scout for models. And if they don't book work, they send them right back, often with debt. Particularly, they're looking for South Sudanese models who, according to the podcast I was listening to, are the hottest thing right now. They say because there's been a push for diversity recently, they're looking for tall models with dark skin who, of course, are beautiful like South Sudanese women are, and also have an interesting story given that they're refugees. One woman says an agency came to the camp, recruited her, told her to lose 11 pounds. Mind you, she lives in a refugee camp, and she said herself she was already skin and bones. They then sent her to Paris without a jacket during the winter, were not in touch with her for 3 days, and when they were in touch with her, they sent her to castings, and when it didn't work out, they sent her right back to the camp, this time with 2,300 pounds in debt. She says her first reaction was, what did I do wrong? Because she thought this was going to be an opportunity for her to provide for her family. She then was so depressed, she attempted to end her life 2 to 3 times and almost succeeded. According to one agency mentioned, they say that they are clear with the models that they are not permanently moving them, only giving them an opportunity to be successful. Select Model Management, which is also mentioned, says that they have changed the lives of hundreds of models. They also say, what's the danger in inviting them for a trip that can potentially change their lives? The article has a paywall, but you can listen to the story on this podcast from Stories of Our Time. Just put in models refugee in the search bar. Story is so disturbing, and I can't believe more people don't know about it. The Sunday Times did an investigative piece.
To some degree, I feel like the modeling industry has to be a cover for human trafficking, especially after I did research into the Prada effect, where Miuccia Prada, who is the granddaughter of the founder of Prada, in the 90s basically said she did not want supermodels. She wanted all of her models to have a certain look. She didn't want the attention to be on the models, basically. Because at the time you had people like Linda Evangelista, Cindy Crawford, who were whose personal lives were just bigger than life itself. Everybody wanted to know why these women were getting paid so much to walk on the runway. Which, let's get one thing straight. Models do not walk down a runway. They strut, they prowl, they prance. It's not just walking. Well, maybe it is now, but back then it was not just walking. Anyway, because of the Prada effect, models needed to look the same, and a lot of designers started following after Prada. Again, I am a Prada boy, hands down. I love Prada, but this was a very huge problem because the type of models that became the rise then were these Eastern European blonde hair, blue-eyed models. And again, these types of women could only be found in Eastern Europe. And so a lot of agencies would go into those Eastern Europe countries, and they would scout girls who could not speak any English, and they would force them to work. They would withhold their passports, and really it was, by all accounts, human trafficking. And then of course you had some people take advantage of the entire situation and use these girls as escorts, or pimp them out for services because of this rise in the request for Eastern European blonde hair, blue-eyed white women. But now, because of representation politics, the roles have kind of been reversed, and we're seeing a lot more rise in South Sudanese models, like that creator in the original video was saying, and I highly suggest that you go and watch their video for full context. For example, we saw how viral Angecies went for just simply being herself at Howard's Yard Fest. This is where those photos come from. Like, she was stunning, she was gorgeous, naturally, but again, people saw how viral this look is, like how much people love South Sudanese women. So of course, when you think of it in market terms, as the demand for black models or representation goes up, the supply must go up as well. There needs to be more South Sudanese models. There needs to be more black models, which, just being observant of the fashion industry, anytime there is a black model on the runway, more than likely they are South Sudanese. And so of course, people have to find these South Sudanese models, and that means going to some very weird lengths in order to get that representation, like what we saw in Eastern Europe with the Prada effect. Like, there really is good and bad in everything, and I don't know like what the solution is to fix it. I don't know like how the Prada effect kind of died off or died down. But again, this has been a trend throughout the modeling industry for a while now. I just think that people are just now paying attention to it.
This story is so disturbing, and I can't believe more people don't know about it. The Sunday Times did an investigative piece on how European modeling agencies go to refugee camps in East Africa to scout for models. If they don't book work, they send them right back, often with debt. Particularly, they're looking for South Sudanese models who, according to the podcast I was listening to, are the hottest thing right now.
As a South Sudanese person who's heard the horror stories of the modeling industry, this really breaks my heart, but I'm not surprised at all. We are seen as a fetish and a hot commodity. Just like most black people, we are over-sexualized simply because of our skin and the way that we are built. So the best way that they can be opportunistic and take advantage of people is going to a fucking refugee camp and saying, we're giving you a great opportunity to come to Europe and America. Mind you, these girls are like 16, 17, 18, 19. They don't know anything. So when they get into an industry where they are told you have to do this, you have to do all these things, or else we're just going to ship your ass back to Africa. And then don't even get me started about how many of them get money stolen away from them. These agencies are fucking sick. Also, even established models have to go through shit. For example, in Melbourne, they are literally boycotting because of fucking racism in the industry. So they might say, oh, Sudanese are hot and they're in right now, but they still fetishize us and they still steal from us and take advantage of us. Sudanese people might be in right now, but they are not accepted. We are still seen as others. And if we're honest with ourselves, the way that these agencies screw over these models is damn near human trafficking.
This is why the modeling industry needs a complete revamp. So one of my model colleagues shared this with me, which is an investigation in regards to modeling agencies booking a ticket and going directly to refugee camps for them to scout models. And if you don't think this is human trafficking in any way, you were dead wrong. See, as a model myself that had the opportunity for me to go overseas to be signed, let me tell you how it works. When you get signed with an agency, usually you pay for your flight tickets and accommodation is covered for the first 2.5 months. And then after that, every money that you require within that period will then be subsidized over your debt. And within your stay, if you require a large amount of debt and you don't make a large amount of money in return, you will end up going to whatever country you traveled from with that debt. And that's how the modeling and fashion industry works. But now, these agencies have sunken to a new low. They go specifically to refugee camps, scout models who are at a disadvantage, and purposely place them in debt to then take more money off them. That is absolutely disgusting. And again, a pure example of Africans always being taken advantage of and being extorted for money. This is absolutely disgusting.
Vulnerable refugees who live in the world's largest refugee camp are lured by false promises of fame and fortune. They are promised the world, but most of them only get to see a glimpse of what the world could be, and then they are sent back in the refugee camp. This is based on the reports published by the British newspaper The Sunday Times on October 8, 2023, which revealed the dark side of the fashion industry, the shocking reality of how aspiring models are exploited by some unscrupulous modeling agencies, and this is what we are working with today.
Wait, nini?
Kakuma refugee camp in Kenya is home to over 280,000 refugees, mostly from South Sudan. These young people have survived the traumatic experiences of the physical and psychological violence of war, and they are desperate to create a better life for them and their family. They survived the worst, but they are not safe yet. They dream of an opportunity to reinvent themselves and leave behind the harsh reality of living in a refugee camp, but above all, they dream of living a normal life like the rest of us. However, instead of finding hope, they end up falling victims to predatory modeling agents who prey on their vulnerability, desperation, but above all, their lack of knowledge about the industry. Their sold hopes are flown across the globe, but the majority of them end up in nightmares. These agents promise them glamorous lifestyle, lucrative contracts, and exposure to the international scene. I mean, who wouldn't want that, especially in their field? But it isn't as straightforward as it sounds. In fact, these aspiring top models often find themselves tied in debt. The reports found that some refugees in the camp who had left to work in Europe for weeks and months were later sent back to the camp with debts worth over thousands of euros. One model even said, "I worked hard but I came back with no money. A lot of people think I have money because I went to Europe. I say I have nothing." End quote. This reminds me of people who have managed to convince themselves that if they ever make it to the Western world, they will become rich, while failing to realize that their relatives who have reached the West many years ago have to save and plan for months just to visit them for 2 weeks. It's a topic for another time, but I'll add this. Banks make money and the people at the top of the bank enjoy that money, but the employees of the banks do not. But back to the story. I mean, I wonder how much these aspiring models were paid and how often they worked. So to get some perspective, I decided to reach out to a friend of mine who's a model. She was in the industry, and this is what she said, and I quote, "With the whole modeling industry with East African girls and boys being recruited, is kinda giving the companies that recruit maids to work overseas, such as like Saudi Arabia or so. It's like one of those things they would use, hey, I brought you here, you should be grateful for any pennies that I throw to you, kind of energy. It's kind of one of those things, even if the girl voices out her opinion on how she's being mistreated and how brands are mistreating her as well, she will be blacklisted. It's a plethora of different things and from different angles. It's much more deeper conversation that needs to be had." End quote. I mean, this is a disturbing situation that needs more attention, considering all the skeletons that came out after the Me Too movement, especially if working for an employer would think because they pay you, they own you and your life. I mean, boundaries can be crossed and will be crossed. The boulevard for exploitation, abuse, and harassment are wide open. So to be fair, there are successful stories. However, the few successful stories cannot overshadow the many stories in the shadow. This situation raises serious questions about the legality and ethics of modeling industry and the protection of the refugee population by the host country and the UN. The report claims that some of the aspiring models are made to sign lengthy contracts in languages they do not even understand. A bit like during colonial times when kings, chiefs, and civilians were made to sign papers giving away their land in languages they did not understand. I mean, how is this even ethical or legal? Now, according to the article, the South Sudanese model, Marie Malek, stated, and I quote, "South Sudanese refugees model are the it girls, and I believe it is due to the fact that the diversity and inclusion movement in the fashion industry has skyrocketed. Demands from people asking for more representation, including It is time for the fashion world to wake up and ask themselves at what cost to young African lives their diversity and inclusion policy are fulfilled. End quote. Marie Malek is setting up a group to support refugees working in the industry called Runways to Freedom. Let's be clear, I'm not suggesting that, these young and beautiful aspiring models should be banned from leaving the camp, from pursuing their dreams, but measures should be put in place to protect them and help them in making informed decisions. But above all, they should be made aware of their rights, responsibilities, and where to find help if they ever need it. And last time I checked, refugees are meant to be protected. How is it possible that someone leaves the camp to go work abroad for the biggest brand in the world for weeks and months and then returns to the camp broke and nobody asks questions? I mean, who is in charge of protecting these refugees if not the host country and the UN who run these camps? They should play a bigger role in ensuring the safety and well-being of these people. They should not let them be preyed upon by unscrupulous modeling agents who only care about making money off their misery. Let's keep scam amongst ourselves. Let's leave vulnerable people out of this mess. If it's your first time interacting with my content, I would like to welcome you and let you know that I have a podcast on YouTube full of non-political stories. You can find it in the podcast sections of the channel. I also have a book of Proverbs which you can access through the link below. Moreover, I create fire content that speaks for itself. Please check out my catalog and thank you for your time.
Wait, nini?
European modeling agencies go to refugee camps in East Africa to scout for models.
Does anybody remember a few years ago when models were coming out saying that their agencies were trafficking them? This is one of the articles that you can look up. They go into the details of the actual victims. But yeah, sometimes modeling agencies are very unethical and predatory in their practices and behaviors, even some of the top ones which are named in this article. So it's pretty sad that these girls have to go through this because they just are after a certain dream. They get preyed on. And a lot of these girls, they don't come from money. They don't come from a lavish lifestyle. But a lot of the girls that were abused by Epstein came from modeling agencies. Just be careful. I think this is probably the wildest thing. It says the scouts have been gathering outside of Sweden's largest ED clinic trying to lure critically thin patients onto the runway. These people, they had to change up their entire routine because the girls were getting approached so much by agents. Pause to read this. This is crazy to me. But do y'all get what I mean by predatory? But if you really want to be a model and you're dead set on it, learn how to keep receipts. Get really good at keeping receipts. You need to approach this with a corporate mindset. Keep record of everything. That's what I recommend. And it's not to say that this will likely happen to you, but just take the necessary steps anyway to protect yourself. I wish I could tell you that if you got a female scout or agent that you would kind of be in the clear, but clearly not. So protect.
So this is all I got from these stitches. And number one is that it's really crazy how some people, a specific kind of part of race really want to rip some people off completely. They do not even want you to benefit of your hard work and all that. Number one, let me start by saying who are the people in charge of that refugees? Because I don't see how people are being taken away from refugee camps and then they travel abroad to model and come back with nothing. And why are they meant to sign contracts without lawyers? Because the refugee, they are living out like you've been living in refugee and then you decided to leave to work, why are they not being provided with lawyers to sign their contract? Because you cannot. It is, how do I say that? You are a thief if you decided to sign a contract with someone that does not even understand proper English. To sign a contract in English without even a lawyer, you are a thief. You do not mean well for them. And then you take them off from their refugee camps, take them abroad and maltreat them. And you all heard what every other person say, that it's more like human trafficking. When they take them out, move them, they use them as they want without even giving them what they are supposed to get. And then they come back the same, without any money, without anything, some not even in good health, as skinny and as tiny as they are. Still, they want them to be on diet. I mean, some people's mind, it's actually like, some people are not humans anymore. I mean, they have sold their soul, because I don't see how people take advantage of people that do not have. You can imagine, like, it's just like me. I don't have, right? And then someone, maybe my friend, knows that I do not have. Maybe because I am a good person or because I am naive. The person is also taken from, you are the devil. You are the devil. And I think that if anything is, that refugee that those kids were taken off from, because they are kids, some 16, 17 years. How do people that are 16, 17 years, 15 years sign a contract? They are minors and should not sign contract without a lawyer, without somebody next to them. And they make them read very lengthy, something they do not understand, and then go out and use them, then bring them back without anything. It's just quite unfortunate that slavery is still ongoing. It is still very much alive. And they know that some Africans are naive. I'm not saying naive in a bad way, but I am saying it because some of them haven't traveled abroad before. Some just want to live for a better life, thinking that it is going to be for a better life, and then they come back worse than they left. It is horrible. See you all in my next video. Bye for now.